So here you have it. This is my completed stacking tier list. As you can see, there are 3 defenders and 2 speedsters in the double stacking category. This does not count for your 5 stacks where you're going through draft mode. Okay, this is for your solo or duo queue experience with your mates. Now, when I say stacking, what I mean is the stacking item, okay, where you can either use the AOS cookie, which will stack your HP, the attack weight, which will stack your physical attack stat, and the special attack specs, which will increase your special attack stat. Now, you can only stack up to 6 times. So there's a cap. So each time you get a stack, that is when you complete a score, you will increase your stat, whether it's HP, attack, or special attack. Now, you don't run all 3 because a Pokemon is either based on special attack or physical attack. The AOS cookie is kind of like its own niche. So this is Unite DB, a fantastic resource if you're looking to learn to play this game. Now, you can filter these Pokemon by physical attacker or special attacker. So if you're looking at a Pokemon like Blastoise, for example, and you wanted to stack on Blastoise, you would use the the special attacking specs, not the attack weight. However, if you were playing a Pokemon like Lucario, you would use the attack weight and not the special attack specs because the Pokemon is based off physical attack rather than special attack. So first things first, Cinderace goes in this, you just don't stack with the Pokemon. I'm going to prime this with something I feel like is a necessity for stacking, which is it's not worth stacking if you're going to die after you get your score in. It's very, very rarely worth it, especially if you're playing solo queue. You're going to tilt your laning partner. You shouldn't be stacking as a Cinderace. But one thing to be mindful of is when you are scoring, the enemy is aware you're on their minimap when you're scoring. So you need to have mobility to get out alive, which is why Lucario is a must stacker. Lucario is incredible for stacking. If you play Lucario, you run an attack weight on this Pokemon. And it's not even up for debate. Okay, some Pokemon you double stack, and by double stack I mean run the AOS cookie and the attack weight or special attack specs. An example of a Pokemon that I think is fantastic at doing this is trusty old, where is he? Zeraorc is an incredible double stacker. This Pokemon has got dashing moves for days, low cooldowns, incredible secure. He's just such a fun Pokemon to use. So Zeraorc is a double stacker of fantastic Pokemon to do so with. Garchomp, I think it's not optimal to stack with Garchomp, however you can, only because there are many better options. You can use the Rapid Fire Scarf, the Focus Band, the Scope Lens, the Muscle Band. There's 4 great items on this character. And that means that you don't have the pressure of stacking. Because remember, if you're using a stacking item and you don't get any scores in, you're using an item that's providing you very little value. So think about what that means for a moment. That means when you are losing, your loss is being compounded. Okay? So if you're not getting your stacks in, the loss is compounded, right? So that means you're now losing and you have 1 less item online. So just keep that in mind. Okay, Gengar, I think you need to be stacking with Gengar. I think this is a must stack only because I'm gonna go back to this Unite DB. Gengar is a special attack based Pokemon, and one of the reasons why I say you must, even though he doesn't have great mobility, is if we have a look at his skills, Shadow Ball does a good chunk of damage, and it scales off his special attack. That's the amount of damage that it does, but also Dream Eater, 260% of the damage of his special attack stat counts towards damage. So have a look at that late game when he's got a special attack stat of 435. But if you fully stack yourself, you're going to have an extra about 120 special attack. So that is big, big damage each time you fire off that skill. So there are some Pokemon that I'm going to say must stack, and it's really got to do with how that move scales. Okay, for example, with Lucario, you need to be stacking on Lucario because Extreme Speed scales by 200%, or Power Up Punch, when it's fully charged, scales by 381% of his attack stat, which is really, really, well, it's quite a lot. Okay, it is quite a lot. So those 2 skills is why you stack on Lucario. Now, back to it. Cramorant, I don't think you stack with Cramorant. There's much better options. Ninetales, you don't stack with this Pokemon simply because you don't have the mobility to get away. So if you die, well then it's not worth it, right? And also there's just better options, right? You've got Muscle Band, Rapid Fire Scarf, you've got Spoon, Wise Glasses, Choice Specs, the non-stacking specs. There are many options you can use on this Pokemon, and he's got no business stacking. I think Wigglytuff, it's honestly not optimal to stack on Wigglytuff. However, you probably could stack an Aeos Cookie, but it's just not optimal. Machamp, I think you must be stacking on Machamp. You run an attack weight. He's got fantastic mobility to get in and out, and getting those early scores in allows you to get that level 5 quicker. So really good. Absol, I'm honestly going to say depends on the set, but I'm going to keep him in non-optimal. You could run an Aeos Cookie, however, or maybe an attack weight, but no, I just think it's not optimal. You can run a Scope Lens, you can run a Muscle Band, you can run a Razor Claw, you could potentially run even you've got better options running a Focus Band, in all honesty. Okay. Slowbro, it's not optimal to stack on this Pokemon. I don't think Slowbro is worth it. Mr. Mime. Now, I am no Mr. Mime pro. I do not have much experience with Mr. Mime. I would say it's not optimal. However, if you're looking for some Mr. Mime gameplay, have a look at Bruv HD. I'm going to link his YouTube channel in the description. He's probably the best Mr. Mime player in the world, and he uploads regularly to YouTube. So definitely check that out. I watch his stuff all the time. I actually find it quite entertaining, and he puts out some valuable information. And as well as that, he's actually a pro player, and he's being covered in a video by Inda where him and his team Noun, they pulled off the most incredible game I think I've ever seen in my life, and I'm going to link that as well. It was just so fantastic to watch. And Bruv even played Mr. Mime in that game, and it was so cool. The whole team composition, everything. So Mr. Mime, I'm going to say that's not a conversation for me. I'm going to leave that one to Bruv. However, I'm going to slot it in the not optimal. Venusaur, no. Talonflame, honestly, I think you should be stacking with Talonflame. He's got mobility to get in and out, so I think you should be doing it. Eldegoss, just not optimal to stack with this character. Okay, it's a supporter. I know people have a little bit of a hero complex in solo queue. You could stack for the sake of getting extra healing, but you're probably better off running a rescue hood if that is your reasoning. Greninja, I'm going to slot it in not optimal instead of never stack. I previously would have said never stack, but I'm going to leave Greninja in not optimal just because I've seen some people use the attack weight on it to get those surf resets, and they do a fantastic job. A lot better than, honestly, what I could have done. So I'm going to leave it there. Crustle, I think you must be stacking on Crustle, whether it is the Aeos Cookie or the attack weight. I don't think it's worth double stacking though. I think you should just be running one or the other, whether you want to get bulkier or whether you want to get more aggressive with those X Scissors. Snorlax, honestly, depends on the set. I'm going to assume Block and Heavy Slam because I think that's the better set if you're going to use Snorlax. But yeah, you just don't stack with Snorlax. It's just better items, regardless of if you're going the Flail build. Charizard is not optimal to stack with. I don't think it's a good idea to stack with Charizard. He's better in the jungle rather than in the lane, and even in the lane, he doesn't really have much mobility, so if you're up against a Lucario, you're in for a pretty rough time. Pikachu. Do not stack with Pikachu. Very similar conversation to Ninetales. You just don't do it. Zeraora. Zeraora is a Pokemon that you can double stack with, but I don't know if you must stack with it. I honestly think you should be stacking with Zeraora. Zeraora just needs some reworking. You can't use him well in lane. He's a great jungler. Discharge and Volt Switch you probably don't need to run an attack weight for. You'd run it more with the Wild Charge and a Spark set. So I think I'm going to say depending on the set, but it's probably just not optimal. Because even if you were going the Wild Charge set, there's probably other items you could use. Like you definitely run a Razor Claw. You definitely run a Muscle Band. Sorry, a Focus Band. So there's options that you could use otherwise. Gardevoir. honestly, just stop stacking with Gardevoir, guys. You don't have the mobility to get in and out, and you're giving, like, if you lose the game early hard enough, then you're giving other team the opportunity to hand the game back to you. And if they choose not to, then you've lost. And stacking with Gardevoir is the perfect way to lose hard early. So just please don't do it. Okay, you like with the introduction of the spoon, there's no excuse for some of these special attackers to be stacking when it's not a good pick. So I just think it's not even a not optimal. I just think stop doing it because you're going to lose hard early. Um, Blissey, honestly, just I'm gonna say not optimal. I'm gonna say not optimal, but you probably shouldn't be stacking with Blissey. There's much better options. Again, similar reasoning with the Eldegoss. If you are saying I want to stack to get better healing going for my team or better shielding, then maybe consider a Rescue Hood. And I'm gonna throw Clefable while I'm talking about that as well. Okay, Clefable is in that conversation. Blastoise, honestly, honestly, not optimal. Okay, good, can work really well, does lots of damage if you're going Water Spout Rapid Spin, but with the other sets running around at the moment, I'm going to leave that at not optimal. Mamoswine, you can double stack with this Pokemon. He has the mobility to get in. And now, when I say double stack, I'm talking about in solo queue or the duo queue. We're not talking about in a competitive 5 stack situation where the enemies know that you are double stacking because they'll just shut that down. Because double stacking is very, very risky. Okay, not only if you lose hard early, you've got 2 items offline. So it's like it's high risk, high reward, and Zeraorc and Mamoswine are 2 Pokemon that can pull it off. Other Pokemon that can pull this off while I'm on this train of thought, Greedent. Greedent can pull it off so incredibly well. So can Trevenant. Again, these are defenders that can get their HP up with that Eos cookie. And if you want to do more of a carry element, you can get your attack stat going online as well. Dodrio is a Pokemon that you can double stack with. So again, you've got speedsters and defenders there. Dodrio's growing on me, by the way. And then with also, I would say, who else can double stack there? Maybe Gudra, but probably not. Okay, probably not. So that's probably all your double stackers right there. Okay, Sylveon, don't stack with this Pokemon. Decidueye, stop stacking with Decidueye. I know, I know that this Pokemon scales well. Okay, let's have a look. Decidueye, Spirit Shackle, fully charged, 446%. Why wouldn't you use an attack weight on this Pokemon? Well, let me explain why. If you die, it's not worth the stack and you lose the lane hard early. So by the time you even get Spirit Shackle, the enemies have Unite moves. That's thing number 1. Thing number 2, you're generally jungling with this Pokemon rather than being in the lane. And you're not pushed that far forward that you're right up against their flux zones. So you shouldn't really be in their business. And even if you are scoring, you're already winning the game at that point if you're using Decidueye. So at that point, it's flex damage. And you shouldn't be using your items to do flex damage. You should be using your items to help you in a losing situation. So stop stacking with Decidueye. I've already done a video on Decidueye, and I've already done a video on why you should use the focus band on them and explaining how using the focus band actually allows you to do more damage. So Decidueye is a no-go with the stacking. It's yes, you do damage, but it's flex damage. It's not good damage that helps you win more games. It just helps you win harder, so it feels awesome. But it's not a good way to climb. Serena, you must be stacking on Serena, even though Serena sucks. So just don't use Serena right now in the current meta. But if you are going to use Serena, you stack with Serena. Dragonite, not optimal. Again, probably just Dragonite's not that great right now. Aegislash is a must stack. You run an attack weight on this Pokemon. You probably also want to run a weakness policy. Is a fantastic item. Focus Band's a great item. Razor Claw's an okay item. He's got a lot of pretty decent items, same as Muscle Band. So attack weight is definitely up there in my opinion because generally you are going to lane with this Pokemon rather than jungle. However, in the jungle, you're probably leaning more towards a Muscle Band over the attack weight. Hooper, we don't stack with Hooper. Duraludon, we don't stack with Duraludon. Azumarill, we stack with Azumarill, but Azumarill is unfortunately one of these Pokemon that Zacian, this Pokemon, has ruined. So Zacian, honestly, I actually haven't even played. I think I played one standard battle with Zacian in a bot lobby, and I'm gonna put it in not optimal because I don't even know. Zacian's not used competitively. I don't even care about Zacian. I don't get along with Zacian. Ruin VGC is currently ruining Unite, so not a fan of the big soggy dog there. Espeon, we don't stack with Espeon. Same as Delphox, same as Glaceon. Guys, these are three special attackers. I've already mentioned before. You should be using the spoon if you want more damage. Don't use those special attack specs. They're Pokemon that shouldn't be right up against the enemy flux zone unless and if you are, you're already winning the game, so you don't need to be stacking. Because remember, if you're losing the game, that item's not doing much for you. Okay, that's the danger with the stacking items. Buzzwole, we stack with Buzzwole. We must stack with Buzzwole. We use an attack weight with this Pokemon. It's a lot of fun. Buzzwole's great early. Tyranitar, it's not optimal. One, because laning with Tyranitar is generally just not a good idea. And secondly, there's just better options. Mew, honestly, Mew with the introduction of the spoon is borderline never stack. Um, but Mew actually has pretty decent mobility, unlike Espeon and Delphox and Glaceon. So you can get away with stacking, but I just think it's not optimal right now. Sizzle and Scyther we stack with, we put an attack weight on those Pokemon. Sableye we run an attack weight with. The Water Urshifu we run an attack weight on, even if you run this Pokemon in Jungle. Okay, this is probably the one exception, because Urshifu will go down to the gank and use Surging Strikes like 20,000 times on a poor little level 3 Ralts and kill it, and then it stacks. So it's, early on in the game, not very balanced. Dark Urshifu, I think you would probably use Dark Urshifu in lane, but honestly, Water Urshifu is definitely your guy at the moment, purely for mobility. That Wicked Blow is good secure. I'm gonna keep him there just because if you would run him in lane, you definitely would stack. Dragapult, you don't stack with Dragapult. Comfey, you don't stack with Comfey. Gudra, I'm gonna say is not optimal, and same as Lapras, not optimal.